He was once the golden boy of Hollywood, a man whose face launched 1,000 magazine covers and defined an era of movie stardom. But today, Brad Pitt is fighting for his reputation in a war he never saw coming. Insiders reveal a shocking conspiracy of betrayal, a secret Hollywood rebellion, and 3 devastating scandals that have systematically dismantled his legacy. What you're about to witness is the untold story of how the industry's favorite leading man became its most problematic pariah. This isn't just a fall from grace. It's a calculated takedown, and the reasons will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about Hollywood's biggest star. For 3 decades, Brad Pitt wasn't just an actor, he was an American institution. From his breakout role in Thelma and Louise to his Oscar-winning performances, he represented a unique blend of movie star charisma and serious actor credibility. He was the man who could headline a blockbuster like World War Z while producing award-winning films like 12 Years a Slave through his company, Plan B Entertainment. His public persona was that of a thoughtful, slightly rebellious artist who had somehow managed to beat the Hollywood system while remaining one of its biggest stars. He was an easy icon to admire, the guy who seemed to have it all: the looks, the talent, the respect of his peers, and what appeared to be a picture-perfect family with Angelina Jolie and their 6 children. However, beneath this glittering surface, a very different story was brewing, one that would explode into public view and begin the systematic unraveling of everything he had built. The first and most damaging scandal that began his downfall was the family plane incident that changed everything. In September 2016, the world was shocked when Angelina Jolie filed for divorce from Pitt. While celebrity splits are common, this one came with a bombshell that would haunt him for years to come. Reports surfaced of a heated argument aboard a private jet between Pitt, Jolie, and their children. The details that emerged painted a picture of a man pushed to his breaking point. But the specific allegation that would become the cornerstone of his downfall was that he had been verbally and physically abusive toward his eldest son, Maddox, during the confrontation. This single allegation, though never resulting in criminal charges, became a poison pill in his public profile. The Los Angeles County Department of Children and Family Services investigated and cleared him of child abuse. But the court granted Jolie sole physical custody of the children, a clear signal that something had gone terribly wrong. For the public, the image of Pitt was permanently altered. The cool, collected father figure was replaced by a more troubling portrait of a man with a volatile temper. The perfect family narrative, a key part of his brand for over a decade, was shattered beyond repair. This incident didn't just end a marriage. It initiated a brutal, 5-year, and counting, custody war that would become the central battlefield of his reputation, revealing deeper and darker secrets with every new legal filing. This leads directly to the second scandal: the secret alcohol problem and the monster allegations. As the custody battle dragged on, court documents and Jolie's legal team began to outline a pattern of behavior that went far beyond one bad day on a plane. They alleged that Pitt had a serious, unaddressed problem with alcohol and marijuana that contributed to an unstable and sometimes frightening home environment. Jolie's lawyers claimed this wasn't an isolated incident, but part of a history of anger issues that she had witnessed throughout their relationship. The most damaging characterization to emerge was Jolie's description of Pitt as a monster when he drank. This label, once leaked to the press, became attached to his name in headlines around the world. It didn't matter that these were allegations in a contentious divorce. The seed was planted. The public began to re-examine his past through this new lens. His known enjoyment of wine from his Miraval vineyard was suddenly reframed as a potential dependency. His laid-back party boy image from the 90s was now seen as the early warning signs of a deeper problem. The narrative of the sophisticated connoisseur was collapsing into one of a troubled addict. This scandal struck at the heart of his credibility, not just as a father, but as a stable professional. In an industry that relies on multi-million-dollar insurance policies, an actor perceived as having unchecked substance abuse issues becomes a massive liability. The golden boy was now a high-risk investment. The third, and perhaps most professionally damaging scandal was the Plan B betrayal and the industry backlash. Just as Pitt was fighting for his public image, he was simultaneously alienating his professional allies in a move that many in Hollywood saw as a catastrophic error in judgment. In 2022, he made the shocking decision to sell a majority stake of his acclaimed production company, Plan B Entertainment, to the French media conglomerate Media One. Plan B wasn't just a production company. It was his legacy project, the entity responsible for some of the most prestigious films of the 21st century, including Moonlight, 12 Years a Slave, and The Departed. It was proof that he was more than just a pretty face. He was a visionary. The sale sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Insiders interpreted it as Pitt cashing out his credibility for a quick payday, abandoning the artistic mission that had earned him so much respect. More importantly, it was seen as a betrayal of the filmmakers and talent who had built their careers with Plan B. The company was known for its filmmaker-first approach, and the sale to a foreign corporation raised immediate concerns that its soul would be lost. This move cost him the unwavering support of the independent film community, the very people who had defended him as an artist when the tabloids attacked him as a celebrity. He was now seen as just another businessman, and a ruthless one at that. These three scandals, the plane incident, the substance abuse allegations, and the Plan B betrayal, created a perfect storm. The devoted family man, the sophisticated artist, and the loyal collaborator were all exposed as fragile facades. The foundation of his stardom was crumbling, and just as it seemed things couldn't get worse, a new front in the war would open, revealing that his problems weren't just personal, they were structural, threatening to destroy his professional life from the inside out. The shocking downfall was only beginning. As the walls closed in from the personal scandals, a new and more dangerous threat emerged from within the industry itself. The professional fallout from Pitt's crumbling reputation began manifesting in ways that money and power couldn't easily fix. The man who once commanded any role he wanted was now facing the Hollywood freeze-out, a silent, coordinated withdrawal by the very people who had built his career. It began with the whispers in agency hallways and studio lots. The insurance brokers, those invisible but all-powerful gatekeepers of Hollywood financing, started raising red flags. Securing a completion bond for a Brad Pitt film suddenly required extensive medical evaluations and psychological assessments. The uninsurable actor label began circulating quietly among producers, making studios think twice before greenlighting projects with him attached. This wasn't about talent or box office appeal anymore. It was about risk management, and Pitt had become a high-risk investment. The freeze-out became publicly visible when several A-list directors he'd worked with for decades began distancing themselves. David Fincher, who had championed Pitt through films like Fight Club and Benjamin Button, notably excluded him from his recent projects. Quentin Tarantino, who had written the role of Cliff Booth specifically for Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, was reportedly keeping his distance as new allegations surfaced. The pattern was clear. The filmmakers who had defined Pitt's artistic credibility were now treating him like radioactive material. But the most devastating blow came from the community he'd built at Plan B. The sale of the company had already strained relationships, but what followed was worse. Multiple sources confirmed that several prominent filmmakers who had been developing projects with Plan B began quietly taking their projects elsewhere. The trust was broken. These weren't just business relationships. They were creative partnerships built over years, and they were dissolving overnight. Pitt found himself isolated not just from family, but from the professional family he'd spent decades cultivating. This professional isolation created a vacuum that allowed older, more damaging stories to resurface with new credibility. The industry's cooling attitude toward Pitt gave courage to those who had remained silent for years, leading to the resurfacing of past demons. The first to re-emerge was the ghost of his first marriage to Jennifer Aniston. For years, the narrative had been that Aniston was the wounded party. But now industry veterans began speaking anonymously about patterns they'd witnessed decades earlier. Stories circulated of volatile behavior on the set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, of tensions that went beyond typical creative differences. The narrative was shifting from Brad left Jen for Angelina to questions about what Jen might have been enduring before the famous affair. Even more damaging were the renewed allegations about his behavior toward his Once Upon a Time in Hollywood co-star, Margot Robbie. While never crossing into formal complaints, said insiders began describing an uncomfortable dynamic and controlling behavior that had previously been dismissed as method acting. These stories gained traction precisely because Pitt's professional shield was weakening. The same behaviors that might have been excused as artistic intensity were now being re-examined through the lens of his alleged treatment of his family. The most shocking resurfacing came from the archives of 1990s Hollywood. Old interviews with Juliette Lewis and Gwyneth Paltrow were rediscovered and viralized, with fans analyzing their carefully worded comments about Pitt with new understanding. What once seemed like standard post-breakup diplomacy now read like veiled warnings. Paltrow's old quote about their breakup being devastating and really hard took on new meaning in context of later allegations. This perfect storm of professional isolation and Resurfacing allegations created an environment where Pitt's every move was scrutinized through the darkest possible lens. His philanthropic work with the Make It Right Foundation, once praised, was now being investigated for construction failures. His passion for architecture was being mocked as a rich man's hobby rather than celebrated as artistic expression. The very things that had made him interesting were now being used against him. But the worst was yet to come. As Pitt fought to salvage his career through what should have been his triumphant second act, he was about to face the one enemy even he couldn't outrun: the truth about his relationship with his children. The private war was about to go very, very public, and the testimony would come from the only people whose opinions truly mattered: the 6 children he'd raised in the spotlight. The final, crushing blow to Brad Pitt's reputation came not from Hollywood executives, former lovers, or scandal-hungry media outlets, but from the 6 voices that mattered most. The private custody war with Angelina Jolie erupted into public view through leaked legal documents, and, most devastatingly, through the quiet actions of his children. This was the reckoning, and it would prove more damaging than any tabloid story or industry blacklisting. The first undeniable signal came when several of his children, now teenagers and young adults, began legally petitioning to drop Pitt from their last names. This wasn't just teenage rebellion. It was a public repudiation that spoke volumes in the silent language of family dynamics. Then came the social media unfollows, small digital gestures that generated massive public commentary. But the true gut punch came from Zahara, who, during her college orientation at Spelman College, introduced herself to fellow students simply as Zahara Jolie. The video went viral, and in that single moment, the world witnessed the complete erosion of Pitt's identity as a family patriarch. The legal battles turned increasingly bitter. Jolie's legal team began presenting evidence that went far beyond the initial plane incident, alleging a pattern of controlling behavior and emotional abuse that spanned years. They claimed Pitt had attempted to isolate Jolie from her professional contacts and manipulate her career choices. Most damaging were allegations about his behavior toward the children during the marriage, claims of intense anger that created an environment of walking on eggshells in their home. While Pitt vehemently denied these characterizations, the sheer volume and consistency of the allegations from multiple sources created a narrative that was impossible to ignore. The professional consequences became undeniable. Luxury brands that had once clamored for his endorsement began quietly letting contracts expire. Chanel, which had featured him in a high-profile campaign, notably did not renew their partnership. The streaming giant Apple TV Plus reportedly paused discussions about developing content with his Plan B company. Even his architectural foundation saw several high-profile board members resign. The Brad Pitt brand was becoming commercially toxic. Perhaps the most telling sign of his fallen status came from the awards circuit. During the 2023 awards season for his film Babylon, the usual Brad Pitt Hollywood royalty narrative was conspicuously absent. Instead, interviews focused narrowly on the character he played, with publicists carefully steering conversations away from his personal life. The unspoken truth was clear. The industry still respected his talent, but no longer celebrated his persona. Today, Brad Pitt exists in a strange Hollywood purgatory. He still works. His talent and box office history ensure that. But the context has fundamentally changed. He's no longer the beloved golden boy, but a complicated, controversial figure. The actor who once represented American masculinity, at its most appealing, now serves as a cautionary tale about the darkness that can lurk behind the glamour. The shocking truth about Brad Pitt's downfall isn't that he was canceled. It's that the carefully constructed image he maintained for 30 years was finally stripped away to reveal the flawed man beneath. The Hollywood machine that once protected him ultimately exposed him, not out of malice, but because the weight of his own actions became too heavy for even his stardom to bear. In the end, Brad Pitt didn't lose his career. He lost the narrative. And in Hollywood, that's often the only thing that truly matters. This downfall shocked the entire industry. But what's your verdict? Was Brad Pitt unfairly treated, or did he bring this on himself? We're reading every single comment down below. Share your honest take. If you think this story was shocking, wait until you see what we uncovered about Leonardo DiCaprio's secret downfall. The patterns are even more disturbing. Click here to watch right now before this video gets taken down. Want more unfiltered Hollywood truth? Smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. We're exposing the real stories behind your favorite stars every single week. You won't believe what we're uncovering next.